Hi, so my name is Pi again, and on this third video, we're going to be elucidating on certain things that we began to unravel in the second video. Um, our focus for now is on the circadian rhythms, or the 90-minute sleep cycles that we're correlating with a a sense of seeing this pattern in different dimensions of what seems to be correlative with each other. So we were comparing the circadian rhythms with the sound journey that happens within the inner dance process. That was something that just emerged as we went into deep conversation with the energy wave that takes place in this deep trance that is being facilitated now in numerous countries in different settings for various goals. Now, we were also relating this with the near-death experience, or the life review, which brings about a Gestalt type perception, which is to say the big picture perspective, or the ability to see life from a circular contextual point of view. We were also comparing this wave to what happens in the psychedelic phenomena through the eyes of the autonomic nervous system. We were looking at the shifts that happen when we go through different waves of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. We were also looking at this through the awakening of the Kundalini, which is a South Asian spiritual term that connotes a return into the flow, or the rising of the divine feminine, which is a pent-up, coiled, sometimes it's called sexual, but it's really all of our inhibitions trapped inside the body, and as it's released, then it rises and falls through the autonomic nervous system in different ways. So along with that, obviously we can then use this model also as a way of understanding the spiritual awakening. So whether you are interested in neuroscience or sleep science, psychology, whether you have questions around transformation or healing, I'm offering these videos as a way to contribute to how we might understand whole systems at work. So we're going to be looking at different models today, not so many. This is called the Fear-Avoidance model by Robert Letham. It's a medical framework that we have been using here in the Philippines as we work with doctors who are interested in some of the deeper layers of healing. We're going to be going over Leon Festinger's psychological model, which is called cognitive dissonance. And we're going to be looking at certain sections of the brain in relation to how the mesolimbic and the frontal cortex work with each other, that either opens the mind and closes awareness through the, again, correlating it with the circadian rhythms. What exactly happens when we go into wakeful REM, what we're calling the fourth brain state, or evolutionary consciousness, when we become more conscious of what exactly takes place when we shift awareness through the spiritual doorway we call the brain. And we're going to be looking at this whole brain model. These four quadrants might be useful for us when we look at what it means to aspire for whole brain awareness. Like, what does it exactly mean to go awaken both cerebral modes of the thinking processes and the limbic modes simultaneously? both from the left and the right hemispheres, or sides of the limbic system. So the point here, I hope, is coming into clarity that in the same way that we are shutting down the fear avoidance systems and cognitive dissonance during N3, what we do in inner dance workshops and processes is we are simulating the same N3 function, whereas in order to bring people into the honesty that REM or dream states give, without actually going into the state, the very deep state of release, or the shutting down of pain avoidance and cognitive dissonance, which is what we might call an inhibition. We're going to be looking at latent inhibition in the following video, but for now, just clarifying or pointing out and substantiating this aspect of inner dance, where the music, after starting slow, rising up, and then falling into a very deep state, that there is a reason for that, and it might be one of the most important aspects of the process that allows observation to come about, that then brings us into more sustainable recovery systems. So going back to this, this might sound like conjecture, and you can basically maybe review innerdanceprocess.org, just to, if you haven't really exposed yourself to this process yet, to understand what exactly happens during the REM. When people cry, when people go into the realm of insight, when they begin to become aware of certain aspects of them that they normally are not aware of, in this particular model, people simply observe their pain, or if you will, we are able to allow them to look at something that they're afraid of without being afraid of it, or we are we're helping people to look at things that they are not looking at but are actually always looking at, because they are in this cycle. That is how healing here happens. That we basically are discovering that there are ways to bring about direct observation of what people are avoiding through our understanding of how the circadian rhythms work, and that we, in fact, can simulate this in a group or individual setting, which I feel is not particularly that studied in therapeutic work, in this sense of bringing about the dream state, which is basically the meeting of left and right brain modes, cerebral, limbic, left and right brain modes. Okay, so looking at this, going back to this, so the VTA is the ventral tegmental area, and basically the prefrontal cortex is where we hold attention. The nucleus accumbens is, so let's put attention there. Nucleus accumbens would be motor functions. Amygdala would be emotions, and the hippocampus might be somewhere here. So the hippocampus would be more of memory. Okay, so we have two letter M's. Let's put motor functions here. MF, motor functions. So when we're basically awake, we're we're sending these neurotransmitters from the VTA, mostly called dopamine, into the prefrontal cortex, nucleus accumbens, the amygdala, and the hippocampus, so that we could retain everything from attention to motor functions. We want to feel good emotionally, and we also want to remember very well. Otherwise, we mess things up. So when we go to sleep, we basically shut down some of the dopaminergic pathways that sends dopamine into these different areas. And one mysterious area that we've been looking at through the inner dance is a particular thing in the somewhere around the brainstem, near where the it's in the brainstem basically. It's called the striatum, and what it brings about, as opposed to memory, motor functions, emotions, and attention, is what is called spontaneity. It explains why the brain sometimes goes into gestalt experiences that brings about a lowering of latent inhibition, or the lowering of basically fear and pain avoidance and cognitive dissonance. So that tends to happen in dream state, where fear avoidance goes away. And what we're interested in are current research that allows us to look at the fact that people do go into more creative, spontaneous, and dreamlike REM type states in the wakeful consciousness when we access more dopamine that basically it doesn't send dopamine to those four normal areas that I spoke about, maybe as much as it might start sending dopamine to the striatum. Okay, and this has implications. This has many messages for us. Now that the world becomes more and more interested in liberation of consciousness, emotional freedom, expansion of mind, recognition of self, what does it actually mean to be confronted with tools, perspectives, notions, sentiments that we are not just here to heal, but we're here to become whole. So I'm not going to expound on this too much, because I'm already overlapping into sections of the next videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop soon, and maybe I'm going to synthesize for now, so that we don't complexify what is already so complex to begin with. Okay, so in this video we basically spoke about a very specific part of the sleep cycle where we are shutting down our fear avoidance cycles and our pain avoidance cycles and our cognitive dissonance, and that this is called the N3, and that this is a healthy coping mechanism that we go through every night in order to reach homeostasis, or to go back into a natural balance, a natural state of harmony that is maybe one of the biggest reasons why we go to sleep. So in fact, when we stop dreaming, it is known in basic research that the human body actually deteriorates and dies, becomes sick, ages, So this is where we see dream is actually very important. So we are positing this very important question: what does it mean to dream, not just to sleep, but to dream awake? Understanding that we are being given tools that utilizes what we understand about kinesthesia, that there are actually ways to position the body, exposing it to different elements that heighten the brain's responses, that more or less invites us to let go, to accept, to embrace, to allow, to free ourselves, especially in ways that allow us to see, to observe, to confront. So the inner dance is almost a 10-year-old healing modality that is scattered around the world, and we are making these videos more or less in order to bring more understanding to this, with the expectation that this might be helpful for people who are journeying in their own ways in the realms of healing or therapy, or they're just really working in themselves, and this might be important to their own spiritual awakening process. So my name is Pai, and I want to thank you for sharing this space with me today, and I hope to see you in the next videos. Goodbye.